Lesson 16. An interpretation of some verses of St. Gregory sung in certain hymns of Holy Pascha. I speak to you with great pleasure about the meaning of the hymn we sing, so that we should not only be absorbed in the melody, but also our nous can participate in the power of a hymn. What then have we just sung? This is the day of the resurrection. Let us offer ourselves as a gift of fruit. Since in the past the sons of Israel offered certain gifts to the Lord during the feasts or religious festivals, according to the law, such as sacrifices, whole burnt offerings, the first fruits, and other similar things, St. Gregory admonishes us to honor the Lord like those men, and he exhorts us, saying, "This is the day of the resurrection." Instead of the day of a holy feast, which is a religious festival, we celebrate the day of the Christian Easter, of the Christian Passover. What does the Passover of Christ mean? The Israelites celebrated the Passover, when they left the land of Egypt. The Passover that the saint now exhorts us to celebrate is something the soul accomplishes when it escapes from a spiritual Egypt, that is to say, from sin. When the soul passes over from sin to virtue, it celebrates the Pascha, the Passover of the Lord. As Evagrius said, the Passover of the Lord is the passage away from evil. Today it is the Passover of the Lord. It is the day of a bright feast, the day of the resurrection of Christ, who has crucified sin for us, who died and rose from the dead. Let us therefore offer ourselves as gifts to the Lord, sacrifices and whole burnt offerings, not of the rational animals which Christ does not want. Sacrifice and offering you did not desire. In burnt offerings and sacrifices for sin you had no pleasure. Isaiah says, "To what purpose is the multitude of your sacrifices to me, says the Lord," and so on. The lamp of God was sacrificed for us, according to the Apostle, who says, "For indeed Christ, our Passover, is sacrificed for us, in order to free the world from sin and to become a curse for us, according to what is written, 'Cursed is everyone who hangs on a tree,' in order to redeem us from the curse of the law, that we might receive the adoption of sons. Therefore we must offer to him something that pleases him as a gift." What gift and sacrifice must we offer to Christ on the day of resurrection to please him? He does not want sacrifices of senseless animals. The same St. Gregory teaches us about this, as after he has said, "This is the day of resurrection," he adds, "Let us therefore offer ourselves as a gift." As the Apostle says, "You present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service." How should we offer our bodies to God as a living and holy sacrifice? By not doing the desires of our flesh and of our understanding, but walking in spirit, and without fulfilling any desire of the flesh. This is the "put to death your members which are on the earth." This is what is meant by a living sacrifice, holy, pleasing to God. But why should it be a living sacrifice? This is because the irrational animal, who is guided to the sacrifice, dies as soon as it is sacrificed. The saints, however, who offer themselves to God, are sacrificed every day, but stay alive. As David says, "For your sake we are killed all the day long, we are counted as sheep for the slaughter." This is the significance of the saying of St. Gregory, "Let us offer ourselves as gift." That is to say, let us sacrifice ourselves, let us mortify ourselves all the day long, as all the saints, for the sake of Christ our God, for the sake of a person who died for us. How did the saints mortify themselves? They did this by not loving the world and all things in the world, as St. John says in the Catholic epistles. They have abandoned the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. That is to say, the love of pleasure, of money, and vanity itself, and they took up their cross and followed Christ. They have crucified the world to themselves, and themselves to the world. It is about this that the apostle says, "And they that are Christ's have crucified the flesh with the affections and lusts." In that way the saints have mortified themselves. However, how have they offered themselves as a gift? By not living for their desires, but according to the commandments of God, submitting and abandoning their wills to the commandments in the love of God and the neighbor, as St. Peter says, "See, we have left all and followed you." What did he forsake? Was it money? Was it fields, gold, or silver? The only thing he had was his net, and even that was old, as St. John Chrysostom said. He abandoned, as he said, all his desires, all his aspirations, and it is evident that even if he had had money or possessions, he would have scorned them and taken up his cross and followed Christ, according to the saying of the apostle, "It is no longer I who lives, but Christ lives in me." Therefore, in this way, the saints offered themselves as a gift, mortifying themselves, as we have said, from every effort and personal desire. They lived only for Christ and his commandments. Thus we too, let us offer ourselves as a gift, as St. Gregory teaches us. He means us when he says, "the most precious creature of God." Indeed, of all the visible creatures, man is the most precious. This is because the Creator has created all through his word, saying, "Let there be," and there was. Again, "Let the earth bring forth," and it was so. And "Let the waters bring forth," and all similar things. However, he created man with his hands, and he has adorned him. He put all the others in the service of man to comfort him. He made him a king over them, and allowed him to enjoy the pleasure of paradise. The most wonderful thing of all is that when man had fallen through his own sin, he called him back again, through the blood of his only begotten Son, so that man is truly the most precious of all the visible creatures of God. He is not only precious to God, but also familiar to him, as the saint said, because the Lord declared, "Let us make man in our own image, after our likeness." God created man, and again, God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him and breathed into his face the breath of life. Our same Lord, when he became flesh for us, took the likeness of a man, the flesh of a man's nous, and basically he became man in all things except sin. In that way he made man familiar to himself. In other words, he assumed man's nature. Therefore the saint said well and rightly that man is the most precious creature and familiar to God. Then more clearly he adds, "Let us render our likeness to the according to the likeness." How is this possible? Let us learn from the apostle who says, "Let us cleanse ourselves from all filthiness of the flesh and spirit. Let us make our image clean once again, as we have received it. Let us free it from the dirtiness of sin, so that its beauty will be manifested through the virtues." About this beauty David prayed, saying, "O Lord, by your will, give power to my beauty." Let us therefore purify our image, because God wants it to be as it has been given to us, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing. Let us render our likeness to the according to the likeness. Let us learn our own worth. Let us learn what great good we have been worthy of. Let us learn in whose image we have been created. Let us not ignore the great gifts we have received from him through his goodness, and not of our worthiness. Let us realize that we have been made in the image of God who created us. Let us honor the archetype. Let us not insult the image of God according to which we have been created. Which of those who want to prepare a picture of the king do not use good colors, and so dishonors the king and is thus punished? On the contrary, he uses all the precious and bright colors worthy of an image of the king. Sometimes he also uses gold leaf on the picture of the king, and tries to sew all the robes, so that the royal image should have all the royal characteristics, and each person seeing the picture will think that he sees the king himself, the prototype itself. Therefore the image is very bright and glorious. We also, let us not dishonor our archetype. We have been created according to the image of God. Let us make our image clean and honest, worthy of the archetype. Since if a person that makes a picture of the visible king is punished when he dishonors him, what will we suffer when we despise the image of God which is inside us? And as the saint says, if we do not offer the image of God as clean as its original glory, let us therefore honor the archetype. Let us learn the power of the mystery for which Christ has died. This is the power of the mystery of the death of Christ. We lost the image of God through sin, and for this reason we were dead in our transgressions and sins, as the Apostle says. God, since He has created us in His own image, and He has compassion on His creature in His image, He became man for us and accepted death for all, so that we, who were dead, can be brought back to life from which we fell away through our transgressions. Thus, when He ascended His holy cross and crucified sin, through which we left paradise, He led captivity captive, as it is written. What is the meaning of led captivity captive? It means that because of Adam's transgression, the enemy has captured us and made us his slaves. Therefore, when our souls left our earthly bodies, they went to Hades, because paradise was closed. However, when Christ ascended the height of His saintly and life-giving cross, He delivered us through His own blood from the slavery in which the devil held us down through our transgression of the commandments. He snatched us once again from the hand of the enemy, and in a certain sense, He took us from the first slavery into His own service. He defeated and rooted the person that had made us slaves. This is why it says that He led captivity captive. That is the power of the mystery, and why Christ died for us, so that we ourselves, mortified, as the saint said, are brought back to life. Therefore we have been delivered from Hades through the loving kindness of Christ, and now it is up to us to return to paradise. The enemy no longer tortures us as before, and he does not have us as his slaves. Only let us be diligent, brethren, to keep ourselves from sin, since, as I have already said to you earlier on many occasions, every action of sin makes us the slaves of the enemy once again. We voluntarily give ourselves up to being his slaves. Is it not a shame and great suffering when, after Christ has delivered us from Hades through His own blood, and we have heard all these things, to return and put ourselves once again in Hades? In that case, are we not worthy of a worse and more miserable hell? God, the lover of mankind, show mercy on us, grant us vigilance and conscience, and aid us so that we may find a little mercy in the day of judgment.